guest on the show today, and we are so privileged to have him on our show today. He's the Executive Director, Center for Religious Cooperation and Tolerance, member, Board of Trustees, Mediation, Conciliation and Human Rights Center, Distinguished Fellow, Department of Religious Studies, University of Ibadan. He's also the founder, spiritual head and grand imam, Shafauddin in Islam worldwide. Join me as I welcome Engineer Professor S.A. Olagoke, JP. Sir, we'll be talking about the state of insecurity in the country. What is your view about the current state of insecurity in the country?
The current state of insecurity in the country is highly appalling, because expectedly, we expect this government to have a very straight winning over the inherited liabilities. Their winning in the areas of corruption is reducing, but the rate is too low. And in the area of this insecurity, much as they profess to be trying, for example, the Boko Haram people, I don't know who is sponsoring them. I don't know why we are using all these people to destabilize government. I don't know why we are using them to create hostile environment for governance for the people that are there. It's appalling. It's claiming lives. And in the areas of the Fulanization effect, it's highly embarrassing that the Fulanis, who everybody knew and loved, are now taking up arms, hiding under rearing of cows to kill people and to kidnap people for ransom. All these things are as a result of the fact that impunity will ever continue when we fail to arrest criminals and we fail to bring them to judgment, even when they are being exposed. So these are the areas where we really need, this particular government needs to work on. There is a need to involve experts in the areas of conflict resolution and in the areas of professionalism when it comes to ensuring that the security of the state is established. Beside that, the antidote to insurgence or insecurity is good governance. And this is where people will have to continue to put pressure on government to face coolly this area of insecurity that is claiming lives, claiming properties. In fact, it's a bad environment for government itself to operate. So, the religious sectors, we have our own bonus, and that is the areas of ensuring that we do not allow religion to flame unnecessary passion into a kind of value. We must try as much as possible to process and work on our adherents, because some of our adherents are in government. The rest of our adherents are in the marketplaces and they form the entire populations. So if the right thing is done at the religious sector's face, the products of religious houses now coming into the field of society at large will be a better product to manage our resources for us and to put in the best of administrations that will ensure security.
Thank you, sir. Now, there's a recent news about the human rights activist Omoyele Sowore, which spoke about the revolution, that there should be a revolution in the country. Now he has been arrested by the Department of State Services. What can you say about it? Is it that is his arrest proper, and is it that people should not be allowed to state their displeasures over certain issues?
We are people that take things for granted. We are people that are failing to learn from history. Look at what happened in Egypt today during the Arab Spring. Look at this particular government in Egypt. They deposed the government of Morsi, and even when the Islamic Brotherhood wanted to do anything, they passed them. So there is no government that we hear about revolution and we just sit down like that. And as a learned person, I expect him to know the implications of revolution, calling for revolution. And this is a period when the opposition, Atiku, the PDP, is struggling to ensure that this man, Buhari, is dismissed, and that PDP replaces PC. If at that particular time now, somebody now comes up and calls for revolution, and revolution means quick change, deliberate change of government. So when you look at when such a thing happened in Egypt, you could see what happened. Those people, that the Brotherhood, the Islamic Brotherhood, they were crushed. Look at what happens in Libya. Look at what happens in Iraq. What of Sudan? We don't want a Nigeria that to be full of bloodshed. Revolution means blood. Revolution means we are ready to die. Revolution means kill them all. Anybody that wants to form a kind of string of resistance. So that word is too weighty. They will have put it in a milder manner, milder way. And they will ought to have been specific. Hiding under, for example, when civil servants fail to earn their salaries as expected. When all this killing, they will understand that we want a stop to this thing, giving government a mandate that people will be forced to come out and cry in order to save Nigeria from any form of collapse. People will have passions, and government will have no alternative than to address those specific areas of weakness. But now calling for revolution and giving time that the revolution will start, no reasonable government will begin to look. And Revolution Inca and the others are not helping matters, because they understand better. They understand that government, incumbent government, will always want to defend itself. So if now you are now reinforcing somebody that the way he declares a revolution is we must try as much as possible to be strategic and present our cases in a way that the whole people will have passion for us, because it is the people you want to use. You can't do it alone. It is the people, and once the people are not convinced of what we are telling them, or they are afraid, there is no way they can buy into what we are saying. So today is not on its own. We can only appeal to Mr. President to be soft-handed on the matter. We appeal that he should be released though. If you post a kind of posture of with our right to ensure that the government is pushed out, no government, no matter how weak it may be, will ever sit down to say, okay, they say I should leave. Where am I living? So let us be more strategic. what Sowore is fighting for is a phenomenal fact, which everybody can see. But the way you address, when your father is cheating on you and you want to seek redress, do you say, you are no more my father, I don't like you? You don't say that you will lose out. There must be a way of packaging yourself and packaging your grievances in such a way that people will buy into it, and before you know it, government will begin to shake and do the needful. So that is the best way by which we'll be going about such a thing. So we have to beg the government to release Sowore, and we have to appeal to all other activists to try as much as possible to package their ideas and to sensitize the members of the public, because a situation whereby the whole nation is set into boiling fire, there will be bloodshed. And I will tell you that none of all these people may be affected. A lot of them will run away overseas. It is the 98 million masses that are wallowing in abject poverty and be sacrificed. Upon what? So we need to be more strategic. Nobody likes the way things are going. I believe if those people in government who know what they are doing may not like the way things are going. Under small administration in institutions where some of us work as leader, as HOD, as dean, as a VC, we know it's not easy when it comes to administration of men. It's not easy, except you are clever, you are competent, and God helps you. So human beings are not like rams or cows. So, and we cannot continue to generate heat. We cannot continue to make the environment hostile for government and want the government to perform. So there must be a way of really reaching out to them, those people in power, to enforce them to really do the needful, so that people will be able to enjoy the dividend of democracy in the most reasonable way. Remember that the IPOP case is there for secession. The Niger Delta is there for secession. The Oduduwa challenge is there for secession. So when you have all those, and government is in the know of all these things, Sowore will have used another language. When you look at the history in Nigeria, late Chief Obafemi Awolowo never proclaimed the revolution, but he was charged for sedition, and even some of his lieutenants were used against him to testify falsely. So when it comes to wanting to destabilize the nation, to remove a government, the incumbent government will never sit down and continue to look. This is why I say Sowore and his people, they had not been strategic enough. They ought to have gone into specifics. If it is education they want to face, the education, they may ride on the back of education to go into another phases, and before you know it, momentum will gather and they will have achieved. But declaring revolution have a kind of prerequisited similar problems that have been happening, and people are now asking, why had you not come out for revolution in 1999, in 2003, in 2007, in 2011, even in 2014, 2012, 2014? Why now? We have to be very cautious in Nigeria. You cannot shed blood to cleanse the land. It is not possible. So when you shed blood of the people and you think the land will be, let us look at Boko Haram issue. Just one person killed through extrajudicial process, snowballed into that international fire in the name of Boko Haram. So we must learn how to really manage ourselves, manage our resources, manage the whole country itself in such a way that even if we want to effect any change, people will be so much aware and will be so methodical in doing it to achieve an aim. There is nothing telling us now that any government coming in after this will be better. We just need to really, because we are a nation that failed to learn from history. If we had been learning from what had been happening in Nigeria, we know the present problem or law will not emerge again. And beside that, revolution is not the thing we need now, because it's suspicious. The suspicion there is that, look at how our former chief judge of the Federation was shown out. What led to it? He was found among the opposition in Dubai holding meeting. But by the time the problem was on, they never talked about that because everybody had to be at the defensive. But that was the beginning. That was what really inflamed the passion of the APC government then to really look into it, as they want to use you against us to remove us. And you could see that everybody has a right to defend himself or herself. So if we want to do anything, we have to be very, very methodical in the way we go about it. People, for this particular one now of Sowore, people will be thinking that you want to change this government to allow Atiku to come in. They will be thinking that will be an underlying feelings of the people, of some people. So we have to do things that will give us a kind of a picture of somebody or some set of people that are highly objective, who will not necessarily throw us into pandemonium and run overseas to come back again to say we want to mount the rostrum. So it's unfortunate, but we have to appeal. You cannot continue to anybody in government. Look at Rome 13:1-3. It says anybody in government, you like it or not, its religion may be different from yours or not, its tribe may be different from yours or not, remember and be mindful of the fact that you have been put there through the power of God, and that they are not supposed to be a kind of fear or threat to goodness, but to any bad acts, that whoever now undermines them and do otherwise may land themselves into problem. So that is the spiritual angle now. So if you look at that spiritual angle, God has given us the masses that we are with her to vent our disagreements, and has given government that very particular power to resist any voice of dissent and others. But we need to appeal to government to resist. You cannot be hostile and telling government to do this, to do that. We are doing it. When we undermine the intelligence of Abacha, look at a lot of things that happened now. Abacha wouldn't have lasted a distance, but because of the posture and on strategic way through which we manage it, that's why we lost Abiola in life. So we have to be, whatever the kind of change we want, let us be methodical. For example, now the Nigeria people who may want us to believe that they are organizing any form of pressure on government, on people, ought to have started on when workers began not to have their salaries paid on time, when retirees are dying without being given their gratuity or pensions. So if you gather a pressure and you fought for all these people, and they are now earning their wages as expected. They are now getting their rights as expected. One will now be able to say, these people that did this thing for these people, it means they are well-intentional. But the kind of people that are doing things now, people are now looking at them, most especially who already lost the election. Yeah. And you are now staging that people should come for revolution. People look at it as a kind of vengeance. You want to rot. So we have to be very careful. Nigeria belongs to all of us. Yes. And we cannot afford any form of bloodshed again. We have to be methodical in the way we address issues.
Sir, you talked about bloodshedding now. Now, concerning the issue of the Shiites and the ban. Now, the government's decision to ban the Islamic movement in Nigeria has actually come to us because even despite different calls from international human rights, the government has eventually banned the Shiite movement. Now, sir, what can you say about it? Is it right? As we know, it's believed that the Shiites are also Muslims. Am I right, sir? So, what is your view about this? Is it right? Should the government ban a sect from practicing their doctrines?
Islam rests on brotherhood essence, homogeneity of purpose. And when you see some people within doing other things, there is bound to be a kind of segregation, or you want to. The other side will say we want to maintain what the Quran says. We don't want people to go into bid'ah or to go into. So that happened to be the basis. But the Mr. President has to be advised of what Quran chapter 5 verse 8 says. It says that we must fear God and stand firmly on the issue of justice. And that we must not allow our bias against any person, maybe based on religion or based on tribes, to affect our sound sense of judgment. So, Mr. President must not take it personal that, okay, because I belong to Sunni and he belongs to Shiite, and Shiite Muslims have always been not on the same page with us, you must not do that. He's a father of all of us. Whether we know what we are doing or we don't know what we are doing, in every situation, you need to inherit assets and liabilities. That is the essence of becoming Mr. President for all of us. But on this issue, the issue is on security. When this thing, the Shiite Muslim became a problem in Malaysia, it is on record that they confine them, they confine them to practicing their own doctrines, but they must not go out to convert other Muslims to their faith. So that's what they did. So fundamentally, you can worship stone and all those things. You have a right if you are deriving anything from it. So we cannot ban them.
Still on the issue of the security of the country. Now, the Rugal settlement plan that was picked up by the federal government, what can you say about it? Because it has actually, the idea has caused controversies amongst Nigerians. Some say it is a good idea, while some said it is an attempt to Islamize and to Fulanize the country. So what are your thoughts on it? Is it a good idea or a bad one?
First and foremost, there is a difference between Fulanization and Islamization. Just as we, the Yorubas now, you can look at us. Some of us are Muslims, some of us are Christians, some of us are into other faith. The same thing will be happening among them. And when you even talk about the practice of Islam, they are not our role model. So how can somebody or some set of people that are no role model, how can then they be representing Islam to Islamize? And it is not even, I've been making this particular submission, that it is not possible to Islamize Nigeria. Those that will continue to cry, we want to Christianize, they are politicians who believe that if 5 Christians are in this juicy position, the corresponding juicy position must be given to 5 Muslims. So that is why they are crying all these things. And they are not good Muslims, they are not good Christians. When you use the Bible or the Quran to really assess them. So don't let us confuse us about Islamization. Nobody can Islamize Nigeria. But even when you say all Nigerians are Muslims, do we have anything to show for it? Because when you look into the Quran, the Quran stands for good governance. It stands for philanthropy. You have a lot of big people in Nigeria that are billionaires. And they became billionaires through government. You have a lot of people, even in government, that are trillionaires. Yet, 98 millions of Nigerians are in abject poverty. So how can you reconcile that those people you are now choosing to be this and that are either Muslims or Christians? They are yet to be good Christians or to be good Muslims. Nobody can Islamize or Christianize Nigeria. So, but regarding the so-called Ruga settlements, naturally, the Fulanis, they use staff to rear their heads of cows. But a situation whereby now, some of them now become marauders, using guns, using this and that, and they now go beyond the cattle rearing, killing people, helping those people that want to do ritual to kill people and all those things, or kidnapping people for ransom. It means, and in some of the cases, we have seen cases of non-Muslims, non-Fulani, using their cloth, using the way they dress and all those things to perpetrate all these things. So I think the major problem we are having is that the judicial system is poor. Because how can somebody kill? You have the DSS, you have this and that, and you cannot trade them and get them. So instead of now using the euphoria of the Fulani and doing this of Fulani, why are we imbeciles? The Yoruba people, we have our government through the governors. We have some of our warriors there, apart from religious leaders and all those things that we have. We have the traditional rulers there. If they cannot come to term and really get into the root cause of those people that are really killing and bringing them to justice, not jungle justice now, bring them to justice, then we will continue to cry until Jesus comes back. So that is our major problem. So it's not Fulanization. We can say that government's inability to really get into the right solution, because the solution they are giving us to say that Ruga settlement must be in every state. I think that is Fulanization approach, which has to be resisted if we don't. So, but there is a need for us to do something. We must separate. We must try as much as possible to separate commercial interest from the sociological interest of the Fulanis. When you look at them rearing all these cows, most of them are poor. They are only being employed to do it by some of our big people who believe in rearing all these cows and making money out of it. Until you are able now, using the Yoruba areas now, until you are able, I believe that there are some mobiles that are using them. And even when you talk of all these Fulanis, we have some of them guarding your churches, guarding your mosque, and guarding some industries. If you are unable to really unravel the mysteries around all these things, you will continue to cry Fulanization, whereby you are the people that are giving them. So, to date, the history of the Fulani's interest in occupying every space in Nigeria is there. In 1804, the attempt was there. In 1840, it was the Ibadan people that repelled them in the Osogbo War. So they've been attempting all these things, and it's because they are mainly nomadic people who wander about. You could look at the Jonathan government that try as much as to build schools, nomadic schools, and all those things. They are supposed to be part of beneficiaries, but because they don't stay at a place. But let us remember that apart from the attempt, in some of the villages in Yoruba land, you have them settled. They are not necessarily Kauriara. We cannot just say those people should go. You drive people away when you are able to pin them down to some criminal activities. When you are able to pin them down to some things that may disturb the peace of the environment. That is, in fact, that is when we wake up to say, all these people, why are they all these at the base of all these of the insecurities among us? So, Ruga settlement for those states that cannot and that want it, because they have the constitutional right to say we want it. For those states that believe that it's suspicious, and these people, they will continue to be marauders among us. We don't want them. They have all the fundamental human rights to say it. Because even if you are an indigene of a place, and they discover that you are causing problem, maybe as a thief, as some robber, and all those things, the community has every right to say you become an outcast. They send you out. They banish you from that area. So it's not a very big deal. It's only because it is happening during this particular time of the politicians. In 1967, 68, 69, when the Biafran War was going on and the federal might was about to lose out, it is on record that one summoned them from everywhere, Cameroon and other neighboring countries, to help us quell. And part of the agreement is that they will be given places and all those things. So history will continue. So it's what we are experiencing is not just coming up. It's a kind of cumulative effect of our defects in governance that is now giving rise to the confidence of, say, they must be in every state. That's what's giving them the confidence. And once we know that they will continue to be troublemakers, we may decide we don't want them. But where they believe that for commercial purpose, we cannot do without them. I cannot be going to Kano to get my heads of cows. It's better we have them. If that is what they want in the state, but the onus rests on the governors who owns the law and the traditional rulers who owns the culture. They must work together and tell government what they will, tell the federal government what they want, and we must work towards it.
So are you saying the Rural Settlement Plan is a wrong approach to resolve the Fulani?
Why it is a wrong approach is because once you give them a place, it becomes they form a dynasty there. Once you give them a place, it becomes part and parcel, and they may even extend it. This is globalization, then polarization in globalization. When you give a person just a parcel of land, if you are not careful, you will own more than 6 plots of land. So, but if not that they are giving us a kind of headache regarding security challenges, there is nothing wrong in living together. We have the Hausas and Sabos in every town. we have the Yorubas, we have the Oba Yorubas, starting from Abuja, going to Kano and all those things. We have everybody there. And the Igbos are always everywhere. But for these people now, giving us a kind of threat to life and properties, we have to make a rethink on whether we should allow them to stay or not.
Thank you very much. Now the Vice President, Professor Shimbanjo, said concerning the cases of kidnappings in Nigeria, he said sometimes those cases are exaggerated for political effect, and he suggested that it should not cause enough panic in the hearts of Nigerians. So, sir, what can you say about that? Is it as if the Nigerians should relax when they hear about kidnappings, or most of these cases are majorly for political effect?
I respect our Vice President so much, mainly because of his antecedents in law, doctor of law, a professor of law, and as a clergyman, I respect him so much. But he's now in politics, so he's being infected by the spirit of politics, and that's why he's saying that if it had been one of his people that were kidnapped, he would change gear. He won't say that. Look at this, because we are so bad in Yoruba land. We are so neglectful. By the time that sage, that man, that our Baba was dehumanized, was rubbished by the Fulanis, going to the extent of beating him and all those things and getting ransom. That is Baba. What's the name of Baba again? That's Baba Olufalaye. That is when the Yorubas ought to have come up and say no to this kind of thing. This is one of our own elder statements. Why all this humiliation? Why all this embarrassment? That one is enough. But because we take things for granted, we only talk about it, and now it's now happening. If it could happen to Olufalaye, it could happen to anybody. What of, will he now say that it is okay for anybody traveling from somewhere to another place to be attacked, as he was attacked during the campaign, when he was going with the trader money and all those things, and he was attacked like that? Everybody felt for him, and we were even looking for a way of telling all these people off that if the vice president is there, he happened to die, all Yorubas will rise against those people that are responsible. So he needs that feelings. He must not be clouded by the spirit of politics, partisan politics for that matter. So we are not exaggerating. No. We are not exaggerating. Where people cannot pay ransom, they kill them. Those who directly have the bash, we never think in the way Mr. Vice President. But Mr. Vice President is having immunity. Mr. Vice President is living in affluence. Mr. Vice President is not having problem. His children are overseas and all those things. So whatever is happening, he's no more one of us now at the grassroots. They come down when they need us, when they want to use us as fuel to be able to renew their mandate at the top. And I don't expect such from him. He's a typical Yoruba man. He's somebody that is highly respected. We are not exaggerating. No. He needs to hear. Nobody's exaggerating anything. Even look at America. Something happened recently now in America now, and people are now looking at Trump. Yes. When 31 people were killed by one nationalist. People are now look at how Obama was crying profusely. That is America for you. They cherish life. We need to cherish life in Nigeria to be able, you must be, I tell people, whether you are religious people or non-religious people, you need to be a humanist. A humanist is somebody that will understand the concept of fundamental human rights. So, one, as a clergyman and as a professor of law, the vice president, President Osinbajo, must try as much as possible to introduce one thing into governance. He must revert us back to the era of Solomon. Solomon, or Suleiman, directly asked from God, commune with God, give me knowledge, wisdom, and power of discerning mind. They need it at the top. Once they are given that through the Spirit of Holy Ghost, I'm telling you, they offer good governance. That is what is lacking in our governance. That is what is lacking. And I believe he said it to please the guys on top.
Yes, we have heard so much from Professor S.A. Olagoke concerning the current state of insecurity in the country. Thanks for joining us. We are so happy. We are so glad you honored our invitation, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So next time, join us next time, same time next time on this show. It is State Affairs, and I am Oluwatosin Olowokere. Bye for now.